Good evening. It's Thursday, April 14th, 2016. I'm your host, Kat Galliano.
And I'm Stephen Anastas. Welcome to the Local Live.
The battle for New York is on as primary day is almost here. We'll update you on what's been happening on the campaign trails.
Republican presidential candidate John Kasich held a town hall meeting at Iona College.
An Army Corps of Engineers flood mitigation update coming up.
Go Tigers! Keep watching for our LMC-TV Varsity Sports Play of the Week.
The Property Brothers are back in Westchester. We have that local story and more in the media.
With graduation around the corner, join us as we discuss resources to finance your college education. Be part of the conversation in our live roundtable later tonight.
Tell us what you think. In person, over the phone, online. Watch and hear yourself on TV. You tell us, we air it. This is the Local Live.
This past week, Donald Trump was announced winner of the Missouri primaries. Bernie Sanders won Wyoming, Ted Cruz took Wisconsin, and Hillary Clinton continues to lead the polls in New York. The Local Live has been on the scene reporting from the political rallies happening near our community. This week, Republican presidential candidate John Kasich was in New Rochelle, and Local Live producers Shayla Navarro and Kat Galliano reporter Jack Wells were at the governor's town hall. Here is their coverage.
Good afternoon. I'm Jack Wells for the Local Live. We are here at Iona College for the John Kasich Town Hall. Iona College students as well as John Kasich supporters are here. Kasich is looking to redeem himself and make a comeback in this election.
You know, I talk about my record. You know why I do that? Because I think that if a politician's lips are moving, they must be lying. So the best thing I can do is tell you what I've done so you can check it out. Not tell you what I'm going to do. I mean, that's just talk.
On Saturday, April 9th, Iona College hosted the governor of Ohio's first presidential campaign visit to Westchester County. Kasich engaged a crowd of over 600 supporters by sharing his personal experiences of growing up in a blue-collar immigrant family. He learned to be independent and not to take no as an answer. His 20-minute meeting with President Richard Nixon as a college freshman proved that.
And I wrote a letter to the president, basically inviting myself to a meeting at the White House. And I get to the White House gate, I check in, go through security, and I find myself sitting on a little bench just outside the Oval Office. And the guy walks up to me and he says, "Young man, you're going to get 5 minutes alone with the President of the United States in the Oval Office." I'll tell you what I'm thinking. I got a new jacket, new shirt, new tie, and new pants. I didn't come all this way for 5 lousy minutes. You're out of luck.
Minutes before the town hall began, we met with Paul Morris, a resident from White Plains. He never imagined that his question on autism would be the first to be answered by Kasich and how he would affect the audience.
Are you on that spectrum? Yes. Now, what do we do for a guy that has the courage to ask a question like that who's on the spectrum? Huh?
Why do Kasich supporters think he's the best candidate for the Republican Party?
He's a reasonable guy. I think he's the most reasonable of the presidential candidates that are out there. As a moderate Republican, I like him a lot. I think we have people too extreme on both sides here. There are some clowns to the left of us and jokers to the right. I think we're in the middle with John Kasich.
Well, he's the only, I'd say, moderate Republican left. He's a fiscal conservative. He's strong on defense issues, and he believes in climate change. He also wants to fix our immigration system. So if you compare him to Cruz or Trump, I think for most Republicans in Westchester, he's the right choice.
The national debt clock was hard to miss as the numbers kept rising every second, revealing Kasich's call for fiscal action.
Never mention Bernie or Hillary. They want free everything. But do you realize what those numbers will be with all the free stuff? They want to raise that thing to $30 trillion? You got to be kidding me. Nobody will be working. And by the way, we'll not only get the budget balanced and change the regulation and cut the taxes, but we'll fix Social Security. We'll get the border situation under control. We'll rebuild our defenses all in 100 days.
Despite being in third place in the Republican race and only one primary win under his belt, his determination to keep going has touched his supporters.
It was absolutely amazing. He was very moving, and I think he's going to make a big impact.
Gives our kids a message as to never give up, no matter what.
You want to be great in America? You're great in America when you believe that together we can change the world. Not that the world is going to hell.
In order for John Kasich to be the Republican nominee, his only option is to win at the Republican convention in Ohio this July. He is counting on a contested convention as no candidate has the mandatory amount of delegates needed to win yet. At the town hall, Kasich noted at past contested conventions the frontrunner became the nominee only 3 times, and that's why he has not dropped out of the race yet. Whether you're a Kasich supporter or not, remember to cast your vote and make your voice heard on April 19th. For the Local Live, I'm Jack Wells.
At the April 11th Village of Mamaroneck Board of Trustees meeting, Mayor Norman Rosenblum gave an update to the community regarding the Army Corps of Engineers flood mitigation plan. As we previously reported, the $70 million project, which began in 2009, wants to remediate flooding around the areas close to the Mamaroneck and Sheldrake rivers. In order for this project to become a reality, it needs to be consistent with the local waterfront rehabilitation program, or WLRP. This document contains 44 policies aiming to promote a balance between economic development and preservation of the Village of Mamaroneck's coastal resources. After the Harbor Coastal Zone Management Commission suggested that the Army Corps' project is inconsistent with many policies of the LWRP, residents spoke up to over 3 hours showing their support and concerns towards the project in the March 28th public forum. But the Harbor Coastal Zone Management Commission, or HCZMC, is not the only one that has a consistency vote on the Army Corps' plan. The Department of State, or DOS, and the Village of Mamaroneck must also vote. Mayor Rosenblum said that the Department of State did not find the flooding plan inconsistent with the LWRP, but they requested more information in order to make a decision. After the additional information would be provided to the Department of State, the Army Corps of Engineers will need to submit a formal consistency determination. The additional information requested from the Department of State has not been sent yet. After comments from residents, the board unanimously passed a resolution to write a letter of support to the Department of State. This letter requests the DOS to inform the village and the HCCM Commission of their consistency decision.
Now here's Bobby Baez to brief us on the stories trending this week in our local media.
The Property Brothers are coming back to Westchester. Jonathan and Drew Scott are hosts of the HGTV shows Property Brothers and Buying and Selling. This is the first time the brothers are returning to a location for an additional season. Shooting for the new season of Property Brothers begins on April 18th. To find out how you can be a cast member of the show, check this story out on Aloha Journal News. Now there's an old saying that goes, age is just a number. And it seems like 95-year-old Sally Weintraub knows exactly what that means. Weintraub is a retired lawyer and Larchmont resident who recently celebrated her 95th birthday. While most people throw parties, Weintraub decided that she would publish 4 mystery novels. Murder at the Mikveh in 6 Weeks' Time, Murder of a Goddess, and Death of the Intrepid are all available on Amazon, Kindle, and her website, sallyweintraub.com. You could also read more in the story on Aloha Journal News. Rye Playland is currently in the middle of a local political controversy. Citizens are outraged over the idea of Westchester County Executive Rob Astorino privatizing the beloved Rye Playland amusement park. According to the patch, Astorino plans on selling Playland to a private company. And citizens of Rye and Westchester have even started a petition to prevent this from happening. On April 18th, a fundraiser will be held to raise money for co-op camps. The Mamaroneck School District has cut funding and the community is looking to keep the program alive. So for more info, check out the Loop. On April 15th, Westchester Community College will be hosting Fashion Chic. Fashion Chic is an event in which fashion students will be transforming outdated prom dresses and reinventing them into a more modern look. The dresses are provided by Operation Prom, a nonprofit organization that helps low-income students attend their proms. The dresses will be modeled by students from the Her Honor Mentoring Program, run by Nicole and Judith Scheinlin, or as you may know her as Judge Judy. The program employs female high school seniors to be mentored in professional environments, of which, of course, LMC-TV participates in. So to learn more, head to artswestchester.org. Well, that's it for this week. I'm Bobby Baez, signing off.
We have our local trivia question up next, and don't go anywhere because after that, we'll have our live roundtable discussion, find out how to make college more affordable.
How are you going to pay for college? That's the question on the minds of many high school seniors and their families, especially this spring as they balance the joy of college acceptance letters with the reality of the educational expense and the financial aid packages. With college costs ranging from $24,000 a year to more than $60,000, many families struggle with how to make the financial equation work. Our guest this evening will help navigate this journey and explain the financial aid process and the array of grants, scholarships, and loans that are available to help. I'm Maura Carlin.
And I'm Michael Witch, and as always, we want to hear from you. You can have your questions answered. Just call us or email or tweet. The contact information is on your screen.
Joining us are Marcia Burkett, the financial aid advisor at Mamaroneck High School, Bob Sweeney, who served as a Mamaroneck High School guidance counselor for over 26 years, including time as the director of guidance. And since leaving in 2014, he now works in admissions at Manhattanville College. And Amy Guenzl, the president of the Mamaroneck-Larchmont Student Aid Fund. Thank you for joining us. Let's start with going back in time. When should students and their families start talking about how they're going to pay for college? Should this be a discussion just happening in the spring of the senior year?
No. I'm a firm believer that the conversation should start as you are starting the college process. Quite frankly, even having the family conversation before you get to the college process about what the realities of finances are in your household. There are ways that you can navigate the system, but students knowing where the family is situated in that process, I think, is only fair to the student as you are hitting the college search process.
Do you find that there are students who are sort of blindsided as they get to, decide as they're deciding?
Well, the finance and the cost really should be part of the equation right from the very beginning as they're starting to talk about where they want to go to college. And I think parents have to be honest with them to say this is what's doable for us, this is what's affordable. At the same time, just not make final decisions until you know really what the bottom line cost is going to be, which sometimes doesn't happen until March of the senior year.
So taking from that, should you only apply to schools that you know you can afford? Or should you apply to dream schools? Or should you be allowed to dream and then think, well, let's see if we can work it out?
I always encourage families to have a broad range of schools that you apply to, those that cost in a broad range, those that are less expensive and those that are more expensive. Sometimes what you find is that after you've been through the financial aid process, the more expensive school sometimes has different kinds of funds available to them to package a student that ends up making the cost of college actually either in the neighborhood or even slightly less than a less expensive school to begin with.
In other words, a private school may have more money to give away?
Correct.
Okay. When seeking aid, does it matter whether the school is a public or private, 2-year or 4-year, online, a trade school, or something else?
When you're applying for financial aid,
yes,
you're pretty much going through the same process regardless of what kind of school you're looking at. The kinds of funds that are available for that school to package you might be slightly different or slightly limited depending upon which that is, but it's generally the same process.
And Amy, the Larchmont Mamaroneck Student Aid Foundation?
Fund.
Will they help with any of those types of schools, or is it only for specific kinds of schools?
We give scholarships to any of those schools, public, private, 4-year, 2-year, and technical schools as well.
Okay, well, we actually have a video from the fund that we're going to take a look at now, and you can see what kids are using this money for. Okay.
helped me reach the amount that I need to pay for tuition and all the expenses that being away at college requires.
It's been a great help. It's made a huge difference.
Without the student aid fund, new school would not have been a possibility.
But definitely help with tuition, it helps with books, it helps with transportation.
It definitely made college a lot easier, and I don't have a lot of debt when I come out of college.
Without this scholarship, I even considered not going to college.
NYU Silver School of Social Work.
University of Albany.
Penn State.
Boston University.
Stony Brook University.
The New School University.
NYU.
SUNY Albany.
Emerson College.
Plattsburgh State University.
Tufts University.
Binghamton University.
John Jay College of Criminal Justice.
I just want to thank you guys for instilling the belief and the financial assistance, because it does go a long way.
Thank you, Mamaroneck.
One of the things that we read about is too poor for college, too rich for financial aid. One, can you guys explain that dilemma, and two, why?
Well, we have the benefit of living in the Northeast. We all know that the cost of living here is quite expensive. Many of the formulas that colleges use to base your eligibility for financial aid is comparing you to other students nationally. Yes, they give you some accommodation for the fact that you're in the Northeast, but for those of us who live in this community or these communities, we know that it's never really quite perceived the same way, as we feel much poorer than we probably appear on paper. And as a result, that sometimes comes through. I also think that the middle class is in particular affected by the fact that they have sometimes two incomes, one income, that are at a level that makes it attainable for the family to be able to pay for college, but they also have expenses that are pulling on the other side, and they know that they have more than one child, and trying to balance things like saving for retirement and other big picture financial decisions that they have to make. It makes it a little tighter for them to pay, so they're not in the neediest of categories when a college is looking at that application.
So I'm going to have you hold that thought, and we're going to, when we go through all the different types of, the FAFSA and how one applies for aid, I'd like you to take me through that. But let's start with, what are the sources of funds that are available? And we can start with grants.
The federal government provides quite a number of different grants. The most common that are used are a Pell Grant and a SEOG grant, S-E-O-G grant. But those are need-based grants that are available. The federal government has a few others out there. I believe that there is military-related and other service-related kinds of grants. The state can be a great source if you are attending a school, if you're a New York State resident and you're attending a school within New York State called TAP. There are a number of loan programs that are available, and
aren't there civic and other organizations that make money available to members' children?
Absolutely, and quite a number of, we actually have a very generous group of community organizations in the Larchmont-Mamaroneck communities that provide scholarships for our students, and generally they're for seniors. The Mamaroneck-Larchmont Student Aid Fund happens to be one of the most generous and helps the largest number of students in our community, in our high school, with providing scholarship money, which is a great help.
Bob, what about colleges? They also give out money.
Absolutely, and probably the best source is scholarships in addition to the grants. But it's an interesting dynamic that goes on now in the middle of April, and there are financial aid directors scrambling to get financial aid packages to the students they've accepted. If we've accepted a student, we want them to come to the school. And we all get concerned because May 1st is the deadline and they're trying to bring in a freshman class. So any student that applied for financial aid, and we first determine the eligibility, but we want to put a package together that makes it affordable. And colleges are competing with each other. We will hear at Manhattanville, well, gee, so-and-so got so much at Iona or another
you
scholarship
do hear people
at
negotiating
Pace, and then we get the phone calls and say, well, they offered us so much, what are you going to do? So it's an interesting dynamic that's going on now, but at the bottom line, it's the colleges now are the ones who are imploring the students come to our school, and financial aid is probably the best tool that we have.
We have a question that came in by email. Are scholarships part of financial aid?
Yes. In short, scholarships can be awarded by the college itself. The grants can be awarded by the college using these federal and state funds available. There are also a number of other organizations, employers, unions if your parents are part of unions, quite a number of other resources that you can go to that are not affiliated with the college specifically that may provide some additional funds for you. And scholarships are a very big part of the package.
Are you better off?
And an important thing is that the scholarships, for the most part, are not need-based. So that if a school wants a student and they recognize the student has a great academic record, that student's going to bring something to the school, well, that's the purpose of the scholarship, to entice them to attend, or certainly to make it possible. So
are those merit scholarships sort of more generous than the need-based scholarships?
The average, sometimes you'll hear $5,000 to $10,000, and in a private school that can be a drop in the bucket. At Manhattanville, we're pretty generous with scholarships. It ranges usually from $5,000 to $22,000, but to live there still costs $51,000. So we still have other means that we have to fill in the gap.
Now, some of those other means, work-study, is that an option at every school? And maybe, Marcia, you should explain what work-study is.
Work-study is a federally funded program. They provide the funds to the college to allow the student to work on or near campus. I always encourage families, even if you were not awarded a federally funded work-study job in your financial aid package, doesn't mean that you as a student can't go out and find a part-time job. But yes, that usually is considered part of the financial aid package, and many schools will provide that opportunity for their need students.
And what about loans? I mean, everyone complains that my kid's getting out of college with, debt that they'll never be able to pay back. What's available there? Loans are a huge part of a financial aid package, and it is very rare that I see any student walk away with a financial aid package with no loans. I would say the student have to take it, or can the parent take it?
There's a combination of those. There's direct student loans that are for the student, and they are modest amounts. If you actually max out that program, it runs about $27,000 over the course of your 4 years, which if you ended up with a 4-year degree and you now have a profession that can help repay those loans, and there are all kinds of repayment plans and service options to decrease some of those repayments. They're all available to them, but they also have, the federal government also has PLUS loans. You also can go to the outside and find private loans, and people have chosen to do that in the past. It depends on being a smart consumer and what really is going to be right for your family in terms of
So what is the
education.
Perkins and what is the Stafford? Those are loan types.
They are loan types. Those are both loans for the students. The maximum amount of a Perkins loan is $5,000. That's for high-need students, and that is a 5% interest rate currently on that.
And when does you start paying? Right after you graduate?
No, 6 months after you graduate. Actually, I think the Perkins loan is 9 months after you graduate. Okay. But the direct loans, or what used to be known as the Stafford loans, are 6 months after graduation. You start your repayments on those, and all payments are deferred until after you are out of school.
I've always seen the student loans as the means for a student to contribute to their education, to take responsibility for the cost. So
they have skin in the game.
It's exactly, and they probably don't have the money in the bank, but they do have that source of loans. And again, it's in the student's name.
An investment in themselves.
Right.
And do parents typically end up taking loans as well?
Some do, some don't. It depends on the financial philosophy of that particular family.
Well, let's go into not just the financial philosophy, but the financial reality. It's all based on the FAFSA, is that right? In terms of getting...
Sometimes.
Okay.
There are two different methodologies that a college will use. One is a federal methodology to decide what the need of a particular student is, and that is used with the FAFSA. You have to fill out the FAFSA for every college in order to have access to those federal loans.
For those who have no idea what we're talking about, you're talking about the FAFSA.
Correct.
Which is the
free application for federal student aid.
You got it right.
Okay.
And no one should have to pay to have the application filled out.
Absolutely correct.
No, but
that
if you Google
application.
if you Google that, you will see services that charge a fee.
There are services
and
that do
they
charge
make
a
it
fee.
sound as if it's like preparing your taxes, because they say that FAFSA is 100 or more questions.
No, the FAFSA I don't think is that many questions anymore, and it is, if you can read your tax return, you can fill out a FAFSA.
And one thing that's changed that parents of juniors should know, and it's changed quite a bit, is this, up until now, seniors, you couldn't fill out the FAFSA until January of senior year based on the previous year's income.
Okay.
Starting in October, parents can now fill out the FAFSA in October. October 1st, I think, is the opening date.
Correct.
And that FAFSA is going to be based on the 2015 income. So when they're doing it, they will have their taxes from the previous year. They better have them completed. So I think that's going to help things.
How will it help?
It's going to, first of all, the information is available. Second, it's going to speed up the process because colleges are going to have a better idea of what you can afford, so they may be able to get estimates to you that much sooner. So I think it's a good initiative that is going to make things a lot easier.
I agree.
Well, when you're filling out the forms, what information, what assets or liabilities do they look at to figure out whether you have a need?
The FAFSA will not consider your primary residence and any retirement savings when they are looking at your assets.
So if you have IRAs or 501ks, that's not included?
401ks, no. 403bs are not included. IRAs, if they are of a certain variety, they are not. If they are truly retirement IRAs, they are not considered as their primary assets that are available to that family to pay for college. However, when you're looking at schools, we didn't talk about the institutional methodology. We talked about the FAFSA form. There are quite a number of schools out there. There's about 300 participating colleges that use what's known as the CSS profile. And they are going to be looking at a much larger picture and deeper financial picture of the family. And they will look at assets and they will look at the value of your home.
But will they offset it by whatever debt you have on your home, mortgages or liens or?
They will look at it, yes.
Will they
and
consider
will
your
consider
taxes?
it.
I mean, we are in a very
Yeah,
hot.
Yes, they will consider all of those things. But those assets are looked at a little bit differently when you are looking at a school that uses institutional methodology to create.
And the big difference between the FAFSA and the CSS profile, and don't forget, Marcia mentioned only 300 schools require the CSS profile. So a lot of schools that just require the FAFSA, just about all the public universities and many privates, it's based on the income of the parent, the income and assets of the parent that the child is residing with. So if
only one parent is looking.
Yes, so if the parents are divorced or separated, it's based on the income of the parent they're residing with.
So it's the
Of
custodial
the
parent?
The household, yes, the household information for the household that the student resides in.
Okay, so because they may have joint custody, but
Correct.
it has to do with
where they
living.
lay their head.
Right.
Would it be possible for Amy to go into some more detail about the money that the Student Aid Fund is currently trying to raise? There was an article that I found in the Mamaroneck Review that talked about the generosity of the fund, but also said that you're a little bit short of what you were able to award last year.
Sure. We, over the last 4 years, on average, we've given out approximately $300,000 to about 50 students. That $300 represents 2-year awards, so students are given awards for 2 years, which they can actually use over a 3-year period. And we are a little short of what we raised last year. I think at this point we're about $38,000 short. Our year ends at April 30th. And the money we raise by April 30th determines how much we can give to this class of Mamaroneck High School class of 2016. We give, last year we gave scholarships to 10% of the high school class. And obviously the more we raise from the local community, the more we can give to those students.
And these are need-based scholarships?
They are strictly need-based. And the whole point of them is to close the gap between the cost of attending school and the scholarships and the grants that they receive. And we actually try to reduce the amount of loans that these students have to take out. And so it's just to try to help them as much as we can.
And if somebody wants to contribute?
If somebody wants to contribute, of course we would love that. And our website is mlsaf.org. And You'll find the donate button right on our website.
Okay.
And these are obviously tax deductible donations.
Yes.
I can tell you as a counselor at Mamaroneck over the years, that has been such a valuable resource in the high school because oftentimes, most times the colleges don't always meet full need. And there's what they call a gap. So students can have a $10,000 to $15,000 gap. And part of that can be aided by the student aid fund. And it's just, there aren't many schools or districts that have that, nor do they have someone like Marcia to help them through it. She and I were a team for a long time, and it was just so important to me to see the work she does with students and the fund.
Well, I want to just hit on a couple of other issues before we close.
And we had one more question that came in by
that?
email. Well, this was about loans. And the viewer wanted to know, is there a difference between a private loan and a federal loan, and which one is better?
There's definitely a difference between the two. The federal loans are backed by the federal government. You are actually borrowing money from the federal government. They typically tend to have better loan fees and interest rates and repayment schedules and repayment options as opposed to the private loans. If you're going to go the private loan route as a family, I highly recommend that you do your research and be a very smart financial consumer. Different origination fees, repayment schedules, repayment fees, different interest rates, different ways of compounding their interest.
Okay, thank you.
What kinds of issues or complications arise for families as they go through the process? And let me start with a very specific one, which is, can you apply binding early decision if you need financial aid?
Not recommended. You can do
Maybe
that.
you should explain why it's a problem first.
Well, because when you are applying under an early decision, a binding early decision agreement, you are telling the college, I am coming to this college regardless of what you decide that you can award me. I encourage families, if they really feel very strongly that that is the way they want to apply to that school, to at least do your homework. Every college has online what's called a net price calculator. Do some homework, try and figure out how you will look to that particular college as a need student and try and get a sense of what kind of aid you might be looking at from them, and have a conversation with their admission office before you actually apply under an early decision
I
agreement.
was actually going to ask you, Bob, can people call an admission office and say, my kid really wants to come, would apply early decision, but we're going to need aid? Can you give me an idea?
Well, I mean...
Or how would you want people to handle it?
I mean, I think I share Marcia's advice that if need is going to be a big factor and cost is going to be a factor, I really would dissuade them from applying early decision because you want to know what financial aid. And in December, if you do get the acceptance, you often don't get a package, so you're left in the dark as to what it's going to cost. I would say, though, if someone does do that and they are accepted early decision, then it comes out that on paper they can't afford it. There are schools that will release them from that binding agreement, but it's not something they like to do, nor as a counselor do we like to encourage. We really want the student to know this is where I can go and this is what I can afford. Now, maybe with the October 1st deadline, they might be able to get the student more information, but it's still risky. The early decision for somebody who's really depending on aid is risky, and and that's one of the criticisms of early decision. It seems like just for the
one
rich
of many.
kids. Yeah.
We often, though, hear the term need-blind admission process. Is it really?
Sometimes.
Sometimes, and I would say that there are fewer and fewer schools that are saying that they are need blind. I think that the reality is that college is a big business. You know that more than I do, that it's a big business trying to attract the right students to their class. And need blind is still out there with some schools, but not lots and lots of them.
On many college applications, there's even a question that says, are you going to apply for financial aid? Are you disadvantaged if you check that in the admissions process?
My advice is always just to be honest. If you're really going to need financial aid, say yes. It doesn't have to be a game playing with that at all. I mean, and the reality is, you know, for colleges that say we're not need blind, the reality is we only have so much in funds that we can give out, and they want to distribute that as best they can. But I would always say, check that box. Yes, you want it.
And if you were given a package by a school and you're presuming it's a 4-year deal, are there circumstances under which it can change, either to get more aid or less, or lose it altogether? Like, can you count on?
I would say that is actually a very good consumer question to ask. This is my package year 1. Every school will tell you that they've based it off of your current economics. Assuming, so the big question is, assuming my economics remain the same for the next 3 years, can I expect to have a similar package? Different schools may answer that differently, and you want to have that conversation with the school.
And another important question, when you are offered merit scholarship money, you do need to ask, is that contingent upon a certain grade point average? So if they want a very high grade point average to maintain that scholarship, that could disappear, with just a D, So, and not every school has that. At Manhattanville, I think we have a more humane policy where it's, as long as the student is in good academic standing, the scholarship will continue over the 4 years. But they have to be careful about that.
Well, what happens is, comes up from what you asked, what you said, if you get a package and at the time you have 2 siblings who are also in college, but they graduate, and when you're going into your junior year, are you at risk of losing your money from the school, from the fund, or anywhere else?
Potentially, yes. I wouldn't say losing it. Obviously, the finances of the family are now changing, and they're looking at it as what the reality is in that particular year. But yes, your package could look different.
We have one more question that's come in just now. This refers to undocumented students, and the question is, does Student Aid Fund give scholarships to undocumented students?
We do give scholarships to undocumented students. As long as they have a financial need, they are eligible, and as long as they go to Mamaroneck High School, they are eligible.
Good. Thank you, viewer. That's a good question.
And on that note, we want to thank you for joining us. If you all stay tuned, we have more community stories and the answer to our trivia question coming right up.
This week in sports, Mamaroneck's boys varsity lacrosse team faced off against rival Lakeland and Panis. Junior goalie Jack Dente made not 1, but 2 quick saves to keep the game tied early in the LMC Varsity Sports Play of the Week.
That's putting it mildly. A nice move there by Cortese. Gets it down low. Stopped by Dente. Rebound. Dente got that too. Dente makes 2 big saves and then almost turns one over. That almost turned into a really bad mistake there for the Mamaroneck goaltender, but no harm, no foul. So Lakeland takes over. How about that?
You're watching The Local Live,
the only news show on Larchmont and Mamaroneck on LMC-TV.
Mystery is an adorable, playful puppy. She is loving her foster home, plays well with all other dogs, and is learning her manners. Mystery is about 11 weeks and 13 pounds. This little princess is super smart, eager to learn, and would love to fall asleep on your lap. To adopt Mystery and more dogs like her, please visit www.ny-petrescue.org.
Remember, if you'd like to keep us on air, support our program by checking out our website at www.lmctv.org. We really appreciate any contribution.
We are always welcoming new interns and volunteers, so send your emails to thelocallive@lmctv.org and join us. We love hearing from you. Thank you so much for watching this episode of The Local Live. I'm Kat Galliano.
And I'm Stephen Anastas. See you next week for another episode of The Local Live. Goodbye.
Ted Astridge